Good evening. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where we talk about investing in the stock market. Been a while since I put out a video on Palantir, so thought I'd follow up with it. And we're gonna get into some analysis and you get to see how I view things and how I actually do things as well, and why I do things. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. All right, straight to business. Right. So Palantir, ticker PLTR. Excuse me. Let's pull up the chart, which I got up here. Now, a lot of investors, what they do is, what I assess is a lot of investors they put too much emphasis on technicals. Fundamentals will always truncate technicals, especially during earnings. Okay, so what? So what I'm doing is a little bit. It's nobody has. Let's just say nobody has a crystal ball. I don't know if the stock's going up or down at the end of the day, and nobody really does. Okay, you never know when some war kicks off or some bird flu happens, and then it throws everything off. But anyway, but that doesn't mean you just totally ignore and say screw trying to get in at certain times and this and that. I got it. No one can actually call the bottom, but that doesn't mean like you can't try, right? Same thing with the top, if you will. So I mean, we're gonna get a little more into it. But anyway, here's the chart. All right. This is the lifetime of Palantir's chart. All right. As far as them being traded publicly. As you can see, when they went public, we're in this resistance phase that we just barely entered maybe a month and change, 2 months ago. This red line is where we're at. And as you can see right here from, you know, November-ish of 2020 all the way over here to October of 2021. It's almost about how do you say, it's all like a whole year's worth of resistance that is formed right here, that formed a few years ago or 2 years in some change ago. So I know a lot of Palantir investors are probably feeling invincible out of breaking out of these low ranges and going all the way up here. But we just barely hit this resistance in this pattern here. So um, let's check the 52-week high. I believe, yep, 2750. This little plateau right here is about 2670, and there's another plateau here. Now that's what it says here, but during these actual trading days, it was probably a little bit higher. So I think during this trading, yep, it's like 2760 probably. All right. So, and then of course we had this big time period right here where it's like $35. So I mean, that's something to consider. But what I'm getting at is there's a bunch of investors here that have gotten into the stock. A bunch of them sold out over here, and there's probably a bunch or a good grip of them, not many of them, because there's a lot of retail presence in this stock. But some of the retail presence were averaging down in these areas, all right? And then you got some money like me coming in here, buying up shares and building a position at these levels over here, all right? Um, Now, with that being said, there are bag holders all along this year-long form of resistance right here that happened a couple years ago, if you will. So, this. I don't think that this resistance is going to be easy to break out of. All right. If we do see a breakout, I mean, you need valuation and fundamentals to back the breakout. And we'll get a little more into that. All right. So let's look at the earnings. Let's see what's coming up. All right. So it's estimated May 8th. Um, they haven't announced the actual date, but it's going to be in that week or around there. There was another estimate that'd be May 6th. It's irrelevant. Within that few days that they're going to report, and actual estimates, we'll go to, let me see, we'll do quarterly estimates. As you can see, next for Q1, it's estimated 8 cents of EPS. All right. Q2, 8 cents. And you notice that represents over 50% year over year growth. All right. Now, Q3 is 8 cents, but it only represents 15.94% year over year growth. I project that if we maintaining these EPS year over year growth metrics should be able to maintain, once again, I say this, should be able to maintain this trading range. Now, Q3 happens. If they beat EPS, they beat on EPS, and they raise this year over year growth. And I mean, if they just do like it, and they just barely have to do it. So if they do 9 cents in Q3, I think the stock will probably just start, things will start getting crazy and we'll start breaking resistance and breaking out and so forth. But, I mean, it's possible, depending on margins. We're already seeing some margin improvement and so forth. All right. Guidance is going to take a play too. Now, when I look at the valuation, we're trading at a trailing PE gap of 273, a forward gap of 170, and a non-forward gap of 75. Even on a price to sales metric, we're trading at around 20 times. Now, I mean, will Palantir eventually grow into these valuations, and is it justified? I mean, I think, as a shareholder, I think that the valuations are justified trading around this range as long as the growth continues. Maybe we get a couple more percentages on revenue growth added. I think it's fair, but to actually break out, that's tough. I mean, I think that's tough. So let's look at the options. Here's another thing I take under consideration. Here's the options change that I've pulled up. And these will fluctuate from time to time. All right. I pulled up the options chart before earnings and then the options chart after earnings. So, I mean, they go based off of the weekly expirations, if you will. So you got a May 3rd one, and then you got a May 17th one. On the third Friday of every month is when institutional options are all traded up. So you're going to see dramatically more options being traded to expire on the third Friday of every month, if you will, as you can see. So they're not much. I don't see much options being traded up on this May 3rd expiration. As you can see, is a little lame. Not much stuff going on here. In fact, the options don't even go up to $30 strikes. All right, but after earnings, we have our May 17th expiration, and you see dramatically a lot more options being had, and this is the institutional options going on. So I'm seeing a huge call wall right here at 25. There's a lot of there's a bunch of puts happening right here. I'm guessing as the stock was going up, there was probably a bunch of people buying puts at each dollar going up, is what it looks like. $22 strikes is a popular one for the puts. So good resistance there for buying pressure, maybe to go down to 21, depending on the premiums that are charged. These $25 strikes, I mean, these were fluctuating for a while, depending on how long someone's been holding the 25 strikes. I mean, we saw a little over 27 not too long ago, so there might have been some exercising going on there, and that's probably a good resistance level that's hard to break out right there. And here are the $30 strikes, which you see more activity right there. All right, so let's look at my position for transparency purposes and what I'm doing. All right. All right, let me pull it up here. So as you can see, I still got my 1,400 shares. Cost basis $7.65 a share. And like I said on the thumbnail, I put my money where my mouth is. I sold some covered calls, or actually I sold covered calls to cover the whole position at $30 strikes. All right, $30 covered call strikes, May 17th expiration date. Now, I'm making a bet that stock is not going to go over 30. I think it could probably. I think it's very possible it gets up to 30 though, but I don't think it'll. I don't think it'll go over 30 because I'm in that. I think the institutional money on the actual third Friday trading day of the month or whatever, they're probably going to make these expire worthless as well. Who knows? Um, and there's a couple of reasons why I don't see any catalysts coming up. We'll pull up the actual trading calendar, and here's a little insight on something. Okay, S&P 500 inclusion. All right. So here's our New York Stock Exchange 2024 trading calendar. June, the third Friday of June, which is the 21st, is when rebalancing happens for the S&P and some other indices. Um, they're not going to be introduced in the S&P during this trading period. It'll be after the trading period. Now, my options will expire. Well, hopefully they expire worthless here. And, I might be some people rooting against me, but whatever. Believe me, I'm a Palantir bull. All right. I want them to be successful. But yeah, there's the expiration right there. I project we trade flat. Maybe we move up a little bit depending on guidance. Maybe the street affords a few more dollars. Maybe we start trading at the 29 level, as the new norm is going to be 29, 28, because we're doing the same amount of EPS, if you will. Now, if you start seeing this stock run at the first week of June, like from the third, moving all the way up to the 21st, and this thing is breaking out of the 30s to 35 or whatever, I think that means that the suits know that S&P 500 inclusion happens. All right. Now, I mean, they technically will not know, right? I mean, they're not gonna announce it, or they're not gonna tell everybody, but I think that they're gonna know when, Palantir is getting included before they actually get included. All right, that's just me. So if we see that happening, it's a good indication that they're getting the inclusion in June. So that's something to take a look at. Um, something to consider. Now that was my take. Very elementary when it comes to technicals. I like to keep it very simple. I think a lot of people get wrapped up into these the head and shoulders and the different candlesticks and all they start throwing out fancy vocabulary on the. Nah, I typically just keep it elementary. Now, I mean, I see the stock. Oh, there's a dip range right here, a dip range right there, and I'll just keep it simple. I'm like, okay, next time I enter and I like the valuation, I'll try to, buy a whole bunch here, a whole bunch there. Next time it dips to that level. That's kind of how I do things. Now, why did I sell the covered calls? Why did I raise the capital? I'm not one of those. If you've been following along on my channel, I'm not one of those investors that sells covered calls and buys puts constantly or sells puts to gather premium. I don't believe in that. So I'll tell you why that I raised the money. Tax man's after me. So I got some capital gains that I got to pay out, to the tax man. So I'm raising some capital here and there, and I think Palantir was a good bet just to do that. Now I hate risking to lose my shares to get them called away, but if I do, let's take a look at let's take a look at the math on how I'd fare out with my shares. All right, I'm gonna block myself so we see the calculator. I got 1,400 shares, right? Let's say, I got $30 and they get called away. All my 1,400 shares get called away. They're going to buy my stock for 42,000. All right. Total, I paid $10,705. And April 26 ish, yeah, is of last year was my last buy order of all the tranches that I've bought. So it hasn't even been a year, and I sold some calls for someone to buy my stock at a 4x valuation. In fact, a little over the 4x valuation if you include the premium of 1628. So not too bad. Yield on cost for the actual premium. Do some math here. 1628 51 divided by total cost basis. Yield on cost is about 15, a little over 15%. You can see that as a one-time 15% dividend for about a couple months worth of risk. Um, and the actual yield against the actual value of my stock, we'll do that math and you'll see me do it so you know how to do it. So it's generating like the yield on my value of my stock is about a little over 5 or a little over 4%, less than 5%, 0.047%. So, either way I win. If they get called away, I'll just have the dreaded problem of, figuring out what to do with 42 grand worth of profit. I believe in Palantir. The reason why I'm selling the calls is because I don't want to sell the stock and I need to raise a little capital. And it's for the tax man. It has nothing to do with the fundamentals of the underlying business. So there you go. That's my video on Palantir. I know it was a little bit long, but we had a lot to cover. A comment down below. Do you think these options are going to expire worthless, or do you think they're going to get called away? I'm curious to know what y'all's thoughts are. If you found value in this video, please consider subscribing. You know, I don't cover Palantir too much, but I come on every so often, so some to consider. Consider subscribing to my Patreon. I got exclusive content running on there. You get exclusive access to buy and sell orders and different content and promotions and such on there. So you know, check that out. With that being said, thank y'all for y'all support, and enjoy the rest of y'all's week, and enjoy your upcoming Friday.